Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to Earth as a Witness 1 year anniversary celebration. This is session one. I just thought I'd start a quick introduction by saying how awesome it is to have all the photographers today join us on Earth as a Witness. Uh, Not too long ago, actually, literally this time last year, Art and I started this program in a way to just showcase inspired photographers from all around the world. And since then, we have done 40 plus conversations, live conversations from 40 plus photographers from literally about 12 or 13 countries. And so we thought, why not just celebrate that moment with you all today? And it's going to be two sessions. Today's the session one. And then we have the second session on Sunday, Pacific time, 10 a.m. with additional set of 12 or 13 photographers. In some ways, I just say, before I do a quick introduction, this is a celebration not just of our program, but actually of all of you and of photography in general, because it's something that really is very close to our hearts, and it is something that really binds us together. So with that, let me welcome you all. Let me welcome our special guest today, Darren Jew from Australia, Jasmine Carey from Australia, Patricia Rubis-Gills from Mexico, Robert Van Kofel from Australia, Amy from US, Phil Borges from Mercer Island, US, Seattle, Ted Rambu from Australia, Mark Edward Harris from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, Matthew Jordan Smith from Tokyo, Tom Mengelson and Tiffany Talbot from Jackson Hole in Wyoming, and then Art Wolf, who generally doesn't like to travel, is very shy about traveling. He generally is only in Seattle, but today for some reason he's joining us from Florida, and then me, Parimal.
Yay!
Yay!
Well done.
Lovely to see everybody.
Everybody. Art, anything you want to say before we start?
Yeah, Tiffany, have I met you before?
I think so. If you think back to a boat, South Georgia Island.
Oh yes. Okay, I'm old, and you're somewhat in the shade. You're being highlighted by the Grand Teton. So yeah, sorry, Tiffany, I didn't recognize you in the shade.
The little penguin among all the penguins.
That's very poor. All right, Parimal,
Okay.
take them.
So what we'll do, just to have fun, we'll start with a quick round of fun facts, a few, two or three, before we start sharing images. And like I said, everyone has submitted one favorite image. Amy's is especially stunning, but we'll get to that in a second.
Setting the bar high there, or
yeah,
low.
and we're just gonna have fun. That's okay. Fun fact: recognize or guess who this person is. This person did a motorcycle trip from LA to Patagonia in about an 8-month motorcycle trip. Who could that be?
LA to Patagonia.
Can everybody stand up and walk around first to give us a hint?
Do you want to see our backside? Like, will that help?
Okay.
I'm
Just the
thinking
way
it
before.
could be
It might
Mark. Could it be Mark?
You know, I would have guessed me, but it's not me.
Tricio.
Matthew.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm gonna guess Matthew.
Must be Matthew.
Matthew. Wow, Matthew. They think it's you. Is it you?
It is not me.
Oh,
Bill.
I think it'd have to be Ted. He's being very, very quiet. there. He's not
Yeah.
making any eye contact.
Oh, there you go.
It may have been me.
Okay, it is Ted. It is Ted. Ted.
That's
This-
right. Now I remember. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. If you see me stand up and walk funny, today we know that it is. He's still scarred from that.
I'm still standing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny
Okay.
thing about that was that I couldn't even ride a motorcycle at the time, so that was quite challenging.
Good for you.
Art has published many books, but he still doesn't know how to hold a camera. So, miracles happen.
Okay, I'm going for more.
Okay. This person is still daydreaming about what the person would do after growing up.
All right.
Oh, I think that's Darren.
That's Darren. Why do you say Darren? Why are you picking on Darren?
Because Darren's a child at heart.
I think it could be any one of us.
Wow, that's actually, it could actually be every one of us, but Darren was the first one that came to mind.
Yeah,
Tom,
I'd go
Tom
Darren.
and Tiffany.
Oh, I like
Tom
that.
and Tiffany. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot. Tom and Tiffany, what are you guys going to do when you grow up?
Finding the circus an option still, or
Circus is always an option. Yeah.
I'm gonna follow Art around and wherever he goes and learn how to photograph.
Yeah.
God. All right, who was the person?
Okay, who's the person? There you go. It's Jasmine.
Oh, Jasmine.
Ah.
Yeah, I think Jasmine, you're in the company of like-minded people.
Definitely.
That's
And
good.
the reason I say that is everybody that I know that's in this group has the passion and the happiness from what we're doing for our living, our avocation. It's life, you know. We as photographers, it's not like an occupation, it's life. And so I think we all feel fortunate about that. And we all say, someday when I grow up, I'll have a real job. But we know that's never going to occur.
Yeah.
And
It's not
and
going to happen.
the concept of retirement. When people say, "Oh, retirement," that is the worst possible word I could think of. Well, maybe there's a couple others,
Absolutely.
but that's it. No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. I do. I just, I catch myself sometimes thinking about, so, what's next, or, when are you, and people say, oh, it's not really a real job. It's like, well, actually, it's, what are you going to do, later? It's like, well, I've had real jobs and I didn't really enjoy them 100% or 200%. And I'm in a place where I don't, just like you said, I don't find like it's a real job, and I'm so happy doing it. And it just, I could do it forever. I have no, I don't.
It's an unreal job.
What I want to do when I grow up.
That's true.
I think we've all been very fortunate to do what we're doing, what we love, and
Mhm.
probably want to fly with our cameras in our hand, I think.
Yes.
At least I do.
Yeah.
I feel lucky all the time. It's amazing.
Mm. Yeah, and not necessarily with just a camera too. You can push other creative bounds as well with that, but you always come back to the photography. So it's really challenging. Yeah.
I think it's a blessing to be able to make a living out of something you love, even though sometimes it can be really hard and business is not easy, but it is a true blessing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Okay, ready for some images?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Roll them.
Let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see it. Can you all see it?
Yes.
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 Okay.
I can.
So first one, Patricia Robes Guild.
Wow.
wow.
Well, absolutely love this image.
Before I took the camera, that was a long time ago, I was a painter. I draw many of the ethnic groups in Mexico. And then this is a very old image, 20 years ago. And I was the other day looking at slides. I look at it and pick it up and show it to some friends. This happened in China, in the Yunnan, South China, in Yunnan province. And I was in a trip with an expedition with Conservation International, with the president, Russell Mittermeier, and his family, and some scientists looking for monkeys to make a hotspot book that I was edited for a large corporation worldwide. And this woman, the goose was her pet. She had it on the head, of course, and it was quite funny because the name of the goose was Otawo, and when she screamed the name of the goose Otawo, the goose raised the head, and the equilibrium of the goose was kind of in jeopardy. So she will move the two legs to balance, and it was quite funny. We spent this shooting was done with many other photographers, Ross Mittermeier's ex-wife, and other people who were around.
Christina, yeah.
Yes. But let me share something that really disturbed me very recently. The gallery that represents me here in Mexico loved the image, and she wanted to show it. She presented in the social media, in the social media of the gallery, and suddenly next day, in the first 2 hours, there were like 30 attacks, really hard attacks on the gallery and on our integrity, because they were saying that it was not my photograph.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to share is they were like really nasty attacks, and the gallery took away the image from the social media. I don't have social media, so I would like to know your opinion, because this is very disturbing.
Well, I think it's a really great photograph. Patricia and I have seen a couple other people have done, but you know, all of us, especially in these days, are often in the same place at the same time and get the same or nearly the same photograph. And that's just sort of the way life is. And it's rare that we always love to be out there alone in the wilderness and, you know, get the picture maybe that somebody else doesn't, you know, get, but also it's people shouldn't be like that. I had a photograph years ago called Bad Boys of the Arctic, which is 3 polar bears. It's one of my more well-known photographs. One of the bears is laying on his back with his head up. It's very human-like, and the mother and other sibling was next to it. And Michio Hoshino, who some of you know, I know Art does, and he was a dear friend, and we were in Churchill, Manitoba on a tundra buggy together, and we were photographing, you know, polar bears for 3 weeks, and we were standing next to each other, and over the years, he published, you know, his images, and super incredible photographer and super friend, and unfortunately he was killed by a brown bear in Kamchatka when he was there maybe 20 years ago now, and it was really unfortunate, but his work lives on. And but the polar bear picture that he took, I think he shot it with a 500, I shot it with a 600. It was nearly the same picture, and a lot of people would write me or call me or text me or whatever and say, "Oh, this Japanese guy has stolen your picture, Bad Boys of the Arctic," and I just had to laugh because this is 20 years ago, and I also shot a picture of a grizzly bear chasing an Arctic ground squirrel across the tundra in Denali Park a few years later, and we both published that picture. I published it as a print. He did it in a book, and the same thing happened with that. But we just happened to be together. We're friends, and so we take advantage of those situations. And you know, we hope for each other. We remember Michio say, "Well, what shutter speed did you shoot it at?" I shot it at a 500, and he said, "Which one did you?" He said 250th, and you know, we're comparing notes, and you know, hopefully we both get the same image or a similar image, but it was more fun than competition. So I think it's really sad that people attack you over this, Patricio, and it's not a good statement on our profession and sort of humanity, and especially if they took it down as opposed to explaining it to the people who were complaining, or maybe that made ugly comments. It's too bad. I feel sorry for you, Patricia, for that, because it's a super image, and so what if it's, you know, you got it, maybe somebody else got it, and let's all share it and love each other for it and be happy. I'm happy that Micho got it. I couldn't share my time in the field with anybody better than Micho. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank
So
you,
I have
Tom. Thank you very much.
I have a question, Patricia. What disturbed you the most? Being attacked or having the photo taken down from the gallery?
Both.
Both.
Yes.
But I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? You'd want people to rise up in arms if they think somebody is plagiarizing or stealing, more to the point, stealing an image. You would want people notifying you if that was true. I think the situation is what we all can feel. Historically, we would love to go out with friends that had same interest in photography. And invariably, if you're in a good situation at the same time, you're going to wind up with very similar images. And it has happened, I believe, to all of us. And it's just, it comes with the territory. But I agree. I totally agree with Tom that the gallery at least should have done due diligence and confirmed with you that that was in fact your photo. And that would be far more disturbing to me than the fact that there's a bunch of people chiming in, writing, disturbing emails to me.
Because your interpretation of the situation may have been different. So it's unfortunate if the two images looked pretty much identical. It might have been a different angle. You wouldn't have been able to stand in exactly the same position. Like we have situations like that when we're on the trip, when we're photographing whales, and the image it's really interesting. At the end of the day, we all experience the same situation, but to see how different the images are with different angles and the way the differences between editing styles or the interpretation of what happened in front of everybody, even though it's essentially exactly the same situation.
Can I just, I actually have seen that other image. I know, whose image that is, and they look similar, but they're actually different. I've seen, they are different. My response, Patricio, and I'll just say, Patricio, thanks for raising this, because I'm glad you had the courage to share what you went through. And it's obviously a very vulnerable moment for you, and we share that. I'd say two things. One, we often judge ourselves by our intentions, but others from their actions, right? And the action was, social media attack, and then the gallery taking it down. I think the social media attack, probably the intention was noble, as Art said, but they don't know better. Sometimes they're just misled. Just because it's true in just because something happens in social media doesn't mean it's true. We know there's so much fake news, right? So I just say the fact that your intentions are pure and your heart is clean, you have nothing to worry about in the end, right? You have a clean conscience, and that's what's important. And we believe in you. I've seen the other image. They are different images. They look similar, but they are different images. And I'm also a photographer. People in the know that it oftentimes you'll be in the same situation and you will get a similar image. I can tell you 10 examples of that. Just because social media thinks they're plagiarized means nothing to me, right? In the end, because I know in my heart that you're an honest man and there's integrity. So, and you know that. It doesn't even matter what I think, you know that. So I think, one, you have nothing to fear, number one. Number two, yes, you can't control what the gallery did because it's their business and what have you. You cannot control what others do, right? But just know that sometimes justice is delayed. Sometimes the right things happen. Over time, it takes time. So that's all I'll say. I think you have nothing to fear.
I appreciate all your comments. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Patricio,
yes.
I love this image, mainly because it shows such trust between a human and an animal, and usually an unusual bonding. So, I would have loved to know more about the story about this woman and this goose, how long she's had it. Does she walk around town with it? Is this, did she just pose with it, or is this something she does all the time? I find it an incredible image. I love it.
Yeah, I do too, and I love the story, Patricia, and how that she talked to it and it lifted its head and she shifted its body so it would. I mean, I thought first she was taking it to market. I don't know, maybe is he taking this goose to market?
It's China.
Okay.
Anyway,
It's a magical image. It really speaks to what a magical world it is. So it seems important to hold on to that this is just pure poetry and delight, isn't it?
Yeah, really.
And let go of the rest, Patricia. Let go of the noise. It's all in the end noise. What's not true is noise.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to keep going to the next one. Thank you. Tom.
Do I have
friend
to come
of
after
Patricia and a friend of ours and a friend of ours.
Oh.
Wow.
Really? This is a bear named 399. She was the 399th bear that was collared, trapped, tranquilized, tagged in the Yellowstone ecosystem about 18 years ago. And she's 26 years old now. And I've been documenting her for the last 15, many days in the spring and up until about a week ago. And she basically goes in the high country and where it's cooler and stuff. And then again, she comes out in the late summer, August, September to get berries, and then on through the rest of the fall until she goes into hibernation. But she lives near Pilgrim Creek, which is about 30 miles north of my house. And she has become probably undoubtedly the most famous bear that has ever lived. And she has an incredible following really around the world. And I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of pictures I've taken of her. And at 24 years old last year, everybody thought she was too old to have any more cubs. She has had 3 sets of triplets, 3 sets of twins, a couple of singles, on and on. So she's been very productive, but everyone thought she was an old bear. And she's, not likely to have anymore. But I knowing her, I just felt pretty confident she would have at least 2 more, maybe 3. And she came out with 4 last year, which is really rare for a grizzly bear. There's only about 1.5% of grizzly bears in all of Yellowstone that have had quadruplets, and they all live through the winter. And that is another big feat. There's probably only like 1/10 of 1% that live through their first year. So she is a favorite animal. I always way the hell too much time documenting her, but she has become the poster child for grizzly bears and endangered species. And did a book with Todd Wilkinson, who is a good friend of mine and colleague, and he wrote the book and I did the photographs. It's called Grizzlies of Pilgrim Creek, and it's interesting because I actually thought about doing a book on her after about the 5th year I was photographing her. And I went up Pilgrim Creek and she wasn't even there. She didn't spend that much time there, but I thought, wouldn't it be great to have the name Pilgrim Creek in the title of a book if I ever did one? And sure enough, that is her main stomping ground, so to speak, and where she hibernates, etc. But last year, she'd crossed up from Jackson Lake and into this meadow, and she stood up in perfect, meadow and kind of backlit. And I was really concerned about that one. I saw the branch that was going through her shoulder there. I thought, oh damn, that's kind of distracting. Then I looked at it, and it's actually doesn't bother me anymore. I don't know, maybe Art, you can comment on that in a minute. But the cubs are just full of themselves, and one is chewing on the other one. And I probably shot about maybe 15 or 20 frames before she went down on all fours and then walked. She stood up again, and anyway, it became my favorite image of her out of again so many thousands. But right now, she and most of her offspring are in somewhat perilous place in Teton Park. There's so many people come to the park this year after COVID, and in all the parks in the U.S., as you all know, everybody wants to get it, wants to out and play and see the country, and the parks have been inundated with people. So they started hazing with rubber bullets and shotguns, shells, and being bad, other questions, not her, but other, and her offspring. She had two, her daughter, 6'10", who is now like 14 years old. Well, hardly, with sort of maybe brutally, because they were on the road doing what they always do. There was an elk calf that was killed by a car a few weeks ago, and the 2.5-year-old, one of them was sniffing the blood, and they shot him with rubber bullets, and then did it again and again, and it separated the 2.5-year-olds to about 30 miles apart. The one came down literally about 100 yards from my house here, maybe actually come in my backyard, and then went on south and ended up getting in a garage. Maybe nobody knows if it actually ate bird seed or dog food or something, but they removed it, relocated it north of Teton Park, right on the edge of Yellowstone. They came back and ended up eating some bird feed in my house. And it was so calm and collected that the game and fish trapper said bait, and it had a roadkill, I assumed, for bait. And so, he said in the trap, he said, well, the bear was so calm and collected around people that he decided it was too habituated, so they decided to euthanize it, which they should have at least given it another chance. But some people say, well, male bears, both of the siblings were male, and they made these excuses like male bears dispersed from their female mothers and all that bullshit. But not the day after. The mother had kicked him out like 5 days before, in a sense, on her own, and so the siblings are hanging out together. They're much more comfortable, together than apart, much more likely to survive. Some of the siblings will stay together for a year or more, and just sort of watching each other's back. And so it was really pretty awful that they killed this, which is a grandson of 399. And then today found out that they had collared and trapped its sibling for the second time. It ended up north of the park, and then it ended up across the lake, and it ended up in a campground again. Somebody was feeding it, so 3 strikes and it's out. I'm sure they will most likely euthanize that one too. But it's all human caused. It's all kind of reaction on my feelings, and it all started with hazing with rubber bullets, separating the two from their home. It's like burning down their freaking home, and then not to expect them to come back, because they're going to come back, because it's all they've known. Another bear named Felicia, which I photograph a lot in the forest up Togety Pass for the last 6 years, has had twins this year, and she's in the same situation where she's a roadside bear. That all the females bears, including 399, go to the roadsides because they're the boars, male bears, don't come there because they don't like people, basically. The females feel more safe around people and cars along the highway than they do in the backcountry with boars that might kill their cubs and put them into estrus. So now the game and fish have started hazing Felicia, and her 2 beautiful cubs are the same age, that look just like these 4. And she has no idea what the hell's going on. She's never been hazed before. And she's been there for 6 years. This is where she lives. And she lives along the highway. It's 25 miles of highway. And she crosses the road, regularly to go up the mountain to sleep and go down on the other side on elk calves and drink and eat grass. So it's a real big controversy right now, and it's not pretty. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that the best option would be to get qualified people that are trained, that are hired appropriately to manage people around bears and keep them separated. And it could be done if the Fish and Wildlife Service, Forest Service, Highway Department, and the Game and Fish would all cooperate. But the Game and Fish actually doesn't give a shit about bears, only if they could put a $10,000 price tag on them to hunt them, which they wanted to do 3 years ago when they were wanted to get them off the endangered species list. And same way with the Fish and Wildlife Service, wanted to get them off the endangered species list. So because they thought there were enough bears. And one person, Fish and Wildlife Service, said that Felicia was a surplus bear, i.e. it's an extra bear. And I said, no, she is a rock star bear, just like 399. She and her kind, there's only 6 or 7 of them in the whole ecosystem that people are able to see. People come 2,000 miles across the country to see one of these bears. If you remove one of these really special bears, then you remove it forever for millions of people to see. So we're having big discussions and trying to figure out if there's a better way than hazing the hell out of them. So sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this was, yeah, sure.
Wow.
Yeah, I would think managing people would be a better solution than trying to manage the bears. Obviously, that's pretty logical, isn't it?
Yeah. We need to cracker shell some people.
I think it's an extraordinary image, Tom, and I never noticed the tree behind it because I'm so engaged with the 4 cubs, and especially the cub second from the left. It has those stripes below its eyes that almost looks like a clown getup, but it could also be construed as tears coming out of his eyes. It's very metaphoric, but the image is stunning. And to get 5 different bears where you can see the behavior, and in 4 of the cases, their faces, I think is amazing.
Thank you.
Really nice.
Beautiful image.
It's the posture of the mother, the look in their eyes, the hands, everything is fantastic. I envy you very, very much.
A great shot. Amazing.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
I was going to say, Tom, you bring up a really good point, and it's one that I know I'm seeing more and more. I think we're all seeing more and more. There's, in biology, there's something called, biological carrying capacity. So how many bears, can that ecosystem support? And I'm always kind of thinking in those terms. But then more recently, you're hearing about, what's being called social carrying capacity. And it's like, how many bears will the people in that area actually tolerate? And usually the social carrying capacity is less than what the biological carrying capacity is. And when I first kind of learned about that thought process and this term social carrying capacity, I found it rather alarming. It's like, here's this ecosystem that can support more than humans are actually allowing it to support. So I think we should continue to have these discussions, and maybe people don't always have to be first, or their needs, but we definitely need to hear from more people like you on this issue.
Thank you. And that's the beauty of these celebrity bears, these half dozen, and especially 399, is that they make millions of people aware of their beauty, their place in the ecosystem, their sentience, their intelligence, their emotional capability with the cubs playing and nursing, and pretty much, it's incalculable the number of people who have seen 399 and or her offspring that have had offspring and these other bears. I mean, there's no better awareness that we can get, or fall, as the old saying is, we love what we protect what we love and all that. But that's the importance of these bears, and for people to see them and realize that they're not, angry monsters that are going to, tear your head off. Yeah. So they're incredibly valuable, and there is carrying capacity, both socially, if we can educate and bring more awareness to people that will accept bears in their life.
Cool. So let me try to keep us along. This is a really good image and a discussion on this one. Jasmine.
Oh, yes. Well, mine's more of a behind the scenes kind of series there rather than a particular image. It was, we were coming back from a day after swimming with orcas in Norway, and we found some orcas near the marina feeding, and they happened to be feeding on a bait ball, just a small one, not overly huge, and we were really lucky at being able to just float around and watch them, and then they seemed to be pushing the bait ball closer and closer and closer to us, and it was like they were trying to feed us or share their ball. And I ended up right in the middle of this bait ball. You can see that the bait ball was coming closer and closer, and there's orcas on the other side peering through the fish, you know, trying to feel like, why you silly person, why aren't you, you know, helping yourself, or it's your turn to take one. And to watch them, they have such a complex system of how they actually work as a team. So to be able to watch them keep the ball intact, and they actually take turns at eating. And there was a mother or possibly an aunt with a couple of calves off to the side, and then they would come through, and it was like they were teaching the calves how to actually grab the fish from the ball, and to have these eyes peer around and having like this herring massage, because you're in the ball, and I didn't want to move because I didn't want to scare anything or interrupt anything, and these orca eyes would just peer through you in the gaps and make a little space, and it was just a weird but really amazing experience to be able to watch all this happen. And it was, the generosity of them was just incredible. Yeah, so yeah, this was the series that I just wanted to share.
But Jasmine, was there any danger that you could get caught up in a ball and orcas wouldn't be aware that you were in there? Is that a possibility at all? Is that?
No, because the ball was quite a distance apart to start with, and we were just sitting there, floating there, and just watching, and we weren't moving because we kept the rib was there, and so it was like, okay, well, the rib was, I guess, our anchor spot, so we always knew where we were. But the orcas just kept coming closer and closer, and the fish were coming closer and closer, and it was like, okay, so what's happening now? And yeah, they just all consumed. I guess at the time it was just so, you were so involved in the moment, and you didn't really think about it. They were very comfortable. I guess the humpbacks could have come from underneath, because they often do steal the bait ball, but no, there was nothing threatening or nothing. They were just very calm and doing their own thing, and it was just amazing just watching the little ones learn how to eat, and very clumsily try to grab a herring, and then you could even watch them from the side being babysit by one of the females, and wait their turn and awkwardly swim on over. And yeah, it was really great.
Mark, and I think the honest answer is, I think Jasmine can swim faster than Darren. So in case things go wrong, she's carrying Darren as her bait, as her bait in case things go wrong,
Yeah, the nice thing about those orcas up there in the fjords of Norway is that they are very specific about what they eat, and they are herring eaters. So in different parts of the world, the orcas eat different prey species, but in up there they're the herring. So they often look at us and they're really close, aren't they, Jazz? But you know they're just interested in and curious about you, not about what you taste like.
Yeah. No, it was one of my most favorite interactions and experiences in the water there. Yeah, definitely.
In your experience, do you think that they pick up on that you're calm and come closer? Because
yeah, I think so. I think they are quite reactive but they're also very logical in their head. They understand that you're not a threat, and they understand when we're in the water with them, you can definitely tell whether they want to come close to you or whether they want you there, as opposed to if another group or something hops in the water, and you can tell that they get irritated and they will just swim away, or they will stay away from whatever's irritating them. So yeah, they're very acute with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks, Jasmine.
Thanks. No worries.
Mr. Phil Borges, you're up next, brother.
Okay. So this is a kora, which is a path around a sacred object. And I love the devotion of the Tibetan people. I mean, it's like Christo came to town here. And those are all prayer flags placed by pilgrims who have made this kora and gone around it. Many people, and they do this daily, usually. And this kora, I think, is like 5 miles. But many pilgrims will prostrate around a kora, which means they put their hands to their chest, up to their forehead and above their head, and then stretch out on the ground, completely flat, touch their foreheads to the ground, and then walk up to where their fingertips were and do it again. So they'll move like inchworms around a sacred object. Or I've seen pilgrims that were heading to the Jokong Temple in Lhasa, which is from Sichuan, which would be about a 1,600-mile journey, and prostrating the whole way. I mean, that kind of devotion. This particular one is around a sacred object, and it's the temple of Princess Wenqing, who actually brought Buddhism to Tibet in 640 AD. And the way it worked was she was the niece of a Chinese emperor during the Tang Dynasty. And as part of a peace treaty between Tibet and China, he sent his niece to marry the 33rd king of Tibet. So Tibet and China have had a long history of being at war and at odds with one another. And as you know, they are right now. So I just like this image because of the devotion it shows. And you can go all over the Tibetan plateau. You'll see scenes like this of prayer flags, mani stones, which are stones that they carved their Om Mani Padme Om mantra in. And, you know, I've asked, especially these pilgrims that go 1,600 miles, why? What are you getting out of this? And their big, one of their big challenges in their Buddhist philosophy is to overcome self-cherishing and self-grasping. In other words, to somewhat tame the ego. And so I've always loved this culture.
Great image.
Beautiful.
Stunning.
When did you photograph that, Phil?
That was for my last book on Tibet, which came out in 2010 or 11. And
do you think
so that was done about 2010.
Have you tried to go back to Tibet since?
You know, I wasn't allowed. I did my first book on Tibet in 1994. And I wasn't allowed to go back for 15 years until a friend of mine got me in. And that's when I ended up doing this book. I learned a secret way of getting into Tibet. And this friend of mine who was running a program for women that die, maternal mortality, to address maternal mortality. And she had trained 3,000 midwives on the Tibetan plateau. So I got there to document her program, and they kicked her out of the country the day I got there. So I had nothing to do. So I started another book. And I ended up going back 3 times to do it.
Beautiful image.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Again, just the scale of the monk and the prayer flags is stunning. Matthew Jordan Smith, you're up next.
So this image is you're kind of seeing the head of the snake in here. This image is part of a long image made as in the shape of a scroll. This series is one I've been doing now for a decade. So if you can imagine a Japanese or Chinese scroll where it just unrolls, this image is quite long, as this entire series is. I just started showing this work, and for a long time I did not show it. I've been shooting it for over a decade, but I didn't show it for, even like right now, the way you see this image, I felt it didn't fit into how we show images, because everything's in a box or in a format that fits, into photography, and these images are anything but. So I showed this image because I've just started showing this work because I feel they fit more into this new form that you've probably all been hearing about lately or this year of NFTs, non-fungible tokens. And what I like personally about that format or that medium is that it gives you the ability to show work outside of the norm that we're used to seeing. These images are taken with film, and it's organic, and it's as it happens in reality. So we've been in this digital age now for a while where everything is, sometimes manipulated and put together. And what I like about this series so much, for me anyway, is that it's organic and it flows and it's exactly as it happens in reality. I call it both long exposure and short exposure because it's unlike, having a still picture where it's just that one caught moment. This is like the series of what I feel is a photo shoot. Like you do a shoot. I do a lot of work commercially for like magazines, covers. I shoot a lot of celebrities. I'm known for that. If I do a shoot of a celebrity, say I shot Aretha Franklin for the last 13 years of her life. Doing any of those shoots, we'd be in studio all day long and do, a series of images. And then the public would see that one image that's selected to be like, either a CD cover or a press for a magazine or whatever. But nobody sees the rest, and nobody experiences what it feels like for everybody in the room. So I began making these images with the idea of sharing the entire experience, not just that one image, but the entire experience, somewhere in between a still picture and a video or a movie. It is moving, but moving in a different way. It's showing the span of time from beginning to the end, and it shows the entire process of the movement. And that's what I love about this whole work.
So these are multiple exposures taken one right after the other?
Exactly.
Or one exposure where the model is moving?
Well, actually, we're both moving. So if you can imagine a dance, say we all know what it feels like to see a couple dancing. but what does that feel like? This is actually the person moving and I'm moving at the same time. We actually are both dancing in sort of a way, and it's shot on film, not shot on digital. And that's the beauty, I think, is the beauty of it all. That it's organic as it happens in the moment.
It
Matthew,
reminds me a little bit. Does it?
Matthew, can you explain a little bit more about NFTs and how they relate to photography?
So yes, so NFT stands for non-fungible token, and it's been in the news, of course, a lot lately, because of the huge sales that have happened. I'm sure we all heard about the Beeple sale of $69 million for an NFT, a non-fungible token. So fungible, if you think about something that we all know, like a $10 bill. If somebody owes you $10, you don't care if they pay you 10 singles, 2 5s, or give you a 10. It doesn't matter. That's something that's fungible. Something that's non-fungible is something that is unique, can't be copied, and that's the beauty of these NFTs. And it is part of this whole crypto world as well. But what's great about an NFT is you get to put it on a blockchain. A blockchain is this way of having, it's like an online ledger, and you get to identify this work as being original, and you can sell that, which is what's happening today. People are selling it, but I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think this is kind of like the beginning of digital in many ways. Like with digital photography, when it first began, many of us said we would never, ever shoot digital. I was one of those people who said that. I heard a story about a photographer who went to shoot digital like in 2003 or 2004 and at one of the Olympics. And he was the only person shooting digital. And everybody was like, oh, what are you doing? You're destroying the industry. And nobody would say that today. People are saying those same things, that same conversation now about NFTs. But I see this as being a turning point once again that will take our industry, not just our industry, but every industry in another direction. I believe like in the future, when you buy your home, your deed might be an NFT. Possibly.
The image does remind me a bit of Eiko Hosoi's Ordeal by Roses, this sort of dream world, this ukiyo-e sort of surreal feel. It's interesting that you decided to go black and white with it, which even more, it takes it into that other world, which is just beautiful. So, no,
Thank
really.
you. I have thousands of these. I've been shooting for over a decade. I have thousands of these. And I actually just shot one again on this past Thursday. It's my Saturday morning here. So I shot all day Thursday. And it's the most fun I've had with a device in my hand. I love doing this whole process because it feels very different for me and for my subjects. I've done them on celebrities like Aretha Franklin. Getting her to dance period was hard, but getting this on her is definitely special. And I feel it's special because it can't be copied. Not even I can go back and make an image again once it's made, because it's like time. Once that clock passes, once that time passes, it's going forever. And this is that same way, because you are in essence recording what's happening in that instant, in that moment. And you can't get that back in that same way, not with movement anyway. It's organic and it's free and it's flowing and it opens a door, and it's open doors for me. Now that I start showing the work, it's open doors in terms of different types of assignments that I'm getting, because now I'm now finally showing it. And I didn't feel comfortable showing it before until this world of NFTs came about. And now I'm finally showing it. And I have my work on the Foundation platform, and I'm showing it there. And a friend told me last night, I love this work. It's funny because, I've been known all my career for photographing celebrities, but this is a different world altogether, and I love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Matthew, are you releasing these as an NFT?
I have so far. I've put out 6 now as NFTs.
And are they prints? Are they just the original? You're shooting film, I understand, instead of
I
digital.
am.
And
shooting
so what
film.
is the final product that becomes the NFT? Is it a film or is it
It's actually, so that's the funny thing. So as an NFT, they get only the file. Some people are putting together something physical along with something digital, but the whole beauty of the NFT is actually the ownership of the file, the JPEG, which sounds crazy to many people, but that's what it is. So in the print, for example, I had a show last year in Kyoto where I showed, for the first time, I showed an entire piece, and it was 14 meters long, or for people in the States, 46 feet long. And of course, in a gallery, it's hard to do because of space, but I showed one original piece. As an NFT, I can show the entire thing because space is not an issue. Like imagine this, scrolling for, 30 minutes or an hour, then you get to see the entire piece. And that's the beauty of the NFT, is you can show things beyond the scope of the boundaries that we've known for almost last, 200 years, since, the 1820s, since photography was invented.
Wow.
So what prevents somebody from duplicating that JPEG?
They can, like once somebody has the JPEG, they can duplicate it, but only one person owns the original. So because it's on a blockchain, it's registered as this is the original. It's like, the Mona Lisa. Say you go to Paris, you see the Mona Lisa, that's that one original. You can go to a gift shop and buy copies, or somebody can try to make a fake one, but they're copies and the copies are worth zero. The original is worth, whatever. And that's the beauty.
Fascinating.
Of it.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating.
It is fascinating. I'm gonna look this up. There's a lot of comments on Facebook about NFTs and whatnot, but in the interest of time, I'm gonna move us along. But I'm sure we're all gonna look this up offline. Thank you, Matthew, for sharing. Fascinating.
Beautiful image, Matthew.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe there's a way of NFT, or blockchain technology, solving Patricio's problem of ownership of pictures.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Good point.
Absolutely.
Robert.
I don't know what it is, but maybe there is.
Well, this is prayer flags again in Bhutan this time. It's one of those, this is in 2008, one of those situations where you see the light doing something magical and it touches you, and I had to scramble up a very steep bank. The cars were just stopped we were waiting for cars to catch up, so I wasn't meant to be doing anything. But I raced up this hill, and of course it's altitude, and you feel it when you run up a hill. But what I'm interested in here, this image just stays with you because it speaks to your heart or your soul in some way. And I think that's how the world is. It touches you in an interesting way. One of the things with prayer flags is that the idea is that the prayers are being sent out into the wind for the benefit of all living creatures in the past and in the future. And that's such a exquisite idea that there's a generosity in the Phil, you know this, that such a generosity in this act of raising flags. They're for the benefit of the person doing it, but they're equally for the benefit of everybody. So, and this image was part of the beginning of getting connected to the Tibetan plateau and photographing in different parts, including Tibet and other parts. So there you go.
Thank you, Robert.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Beautiful image, Robert.
Some images you can create and some images you can feel they're just hanging suspended in short time. You've got to run up this hill because the light's going to change. And
that is well said. It's an invitation to run up that line and then reach that.
Yeah.
Magic.
How large are these prayer flags?
Well, you're in feet, 30 feet, 20, 30 feet. They're long bamboo or they're pine trees. When you get up into them, and I've photographed them a lot, different ones, the wind and the hum of the wind is an exquisite feeling. But the sun, when it hits them, they're a piece of sculpture, in like a Christo or Gormley or something that it becomes a part of the land. Often associated with people dying, so they have that kind of sense, but also the benefit of all living creatures.
That's wicked.
I think it's the coincidence of elements in this that make it so powerful, actually. It's like when all the elements just come together to say much more than one particular moment. It actually says a lot more about, like you say, the whole journey in a sense. So
yeah, it's definitely got that whole journey metaphor, and but it's like there are these sort of signs sometimes embedded in the world, and we just have to see them, and as photographer, make them a little more visible, so they speak more broadly. Everyone else was just waiting in the cars, so it's running. You have to run when you see the light.
Absolutely.
Doesn't stay forever.
Thank you, Robert.
Pleasure.
Beautiful.
Amy, you ready, Amy?
Are you? I'm ready.
Wow.
Yeah, so I made this image in Yellowstone National Park in the winter. And this was 15 years after the largest forest fires in the park's history burned more than a third of its forest. And most of the trees that burned were lodgepole pines. So the black trunks that you're seeing here, those are all burnt trees, mainly lodgepole pines. And I mean, at first I was just struck by the pattern and the abstractness of it all. And to me, it's beautiful. And that's what first attracted me to it. But when you learn the story behind this, that this is fire, some people would say, oh my gosh, that's so, I thought I was looking at something beautiful, and now I think I'm looking at something that's so destructive and devastating. But if you look really closely, among all the burnt lodgepole pine trunks, there are tiny little saplings coming up. Again, this is 15 years after this part of the park burned. And lodgepole pine trees are fire dependent. And so their cones don't open unless they're subjected to really hot temperatures that only fire can produce. So the cones open in a fire, and they release their seeds. So I call this one Scorched Beauty, because, and I kind of liken it, there's so many metaphors in here, but, in destruction, there is beauty. In order to have renewal, something has to die. In death there is life. So again, for me, I just when I look at this, I really see nothing but beauty, while some may see destruction. But to me, they're kind of one and the same. You can't have that renewal, without first having the destruction. It's kind of like the phoenix, rising from the ashes. And it's just, to me, it's just a story of life and death, really.
It's really beautiful. It reminds me of abstract art. And in fact, this is just made to order for my wall. I love this image. I like the dark trunks, but then there's the secondary branches, lateral branches with snow on it. So it absolutely actually obscures some of the main dark trunks and gives it depth, which I love. And then there's the balance of the entirety of the image. And then there's opposition. All those random angles of the trees are opposing each other, which brings balance to the overall composition. So it's just beautiful. I mean, every image we've seen tonight is very, very strong, very graphic. And I think it's such a great idea, Parimal, to have people select one of their favorite images because they really stand up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Parimal,
Beautiful shot.
Can you turn upside down the image?
I don't think I can in real time without messing, but maybe Amy can later. I'm just trying to look.
Yeah, I've tried to.
Yeah, because it's really powerful. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and you know, Patricia, it's interesting you asked that question because I can kind of tell just by looking. I don't think it would look. I don't think you'd know it was upside down.
It's stunning. It actually could look very interesting as well.
Well, a really good abstract piece of art looks good no matter which way you turn it around. I mean, the fact that it's trees is one thing, but just the beauty of line and texture and balance is really how I'm responding to it.
Yeah, agreed. It's incredible.
It's a Jackson Pollock-esque photograph.
Yeah.
Yeah, really beautiful.
It's so interesting that we, you know, so all of us love this, you know, that something like this, which is abstracted, but has this way of touching something inside us. It's very interesting that we're all respond to this very, very subtle and complex picture.
Incredible image.
We like the complexity in our world, don't we?
Yeah.
We're all very deep people.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Amy. Wonderful. I'm sure
Welcome.
anyone wants to buy this for friends on this call, it's free, I assume, right?
It's gonna be an NFT.
I was gonna say,
There you go.
NFT, right?
Thank you. Thank you. Mark, brother, your turn. You ready?
Yes, Paramount, thank you. Except that my neighbor is smoking dope and I have the window open. And
Oh,
so if
no.
I have a contact high, I just collapse over. Just take over.
If you sound genius, we know what happened.
Yeah, you know what happened. It's got to be some altered state for me. But this is a series that I really stumbled into. I was doing a travel story in Indianapolis, and it happened to coincide with the opening of the International Orangutan Center there. And I was just struck by the orangutans. But, you know, they were through, it wasn't exactly plexi, but this double pane separation. And I thought, well, if I could light it and overpower the background, because there's all this ambient light, so you could see the enclosure without the flash, but I was able to overpower it. And I was, with, you know, as a member of the press, I asked for permission to do some things with lighting and all. And so by overpowering the ambient light completely, I was able to get this, and just the awareness of I mean, there's 96.4% of the same DNA between orangutans and us, but the amazing thing, after I shot it, this orangutan is named AZ. He signaled for me to turn the viewfinder around and wanted to see the screen, which blew me away. It's incredible. In fact, there's a famous video that you guys could look up later of a woman that visited the center later who had burns and bandages up here, and one of the orangutans there kept pointing on the glass, like, you know, show me what's happening, and was completely curious about it. So that's on YouTube, something to look up. But this started the series where I did a number of images there. Then I went to a rescue center in Florida, the Tama Zoo in Japan, Singapore. And then because of that, the Borneo orangutan, and then won some awards and magazine features. And so the Borneo Orangutan Survival Foundation asked if I could, you know, do a pro bono piece for them, which I said, of course. And they brought me to Borneo, and then I started photographing some of the orangutans in the wild and doing some more portraits. And so it's really, and then I started to really study about them. Anything I take on for any length of time, I really want to understand what's going on. And so this book is sort of hot off the press. I'll just, if I'm allowed to, do a little commercial thing, but this is the new book. But I'm not an expert on orangutans, but I have done my homework. But I have experts writing in the book, giving us a background, and as, of course, we all know about the danger of that they're endangered in the wild because of palm oil. But it's a very complex issue, and so we do talk about that in the book. And since they're only, for the viewers out there, they're only found in Borneo and Sumatra. And, somebody said, if you lose the forest, you lose the orangutans. It's like making making an orangutan live on the ground is like making a Saint Bernard live in a tree. It just isn't going to last. And so there's a lot of complex issues. There are no simple answers, and it's dangerous for us in the West or whatever to say to Indonesia, or Malaysia, oh, you should do this or do that. It's a very complex issue, but there are people like the Borneo Orangutan Survival Foundation and many others really doing great things to ensure that they have a life in the future. And it's a battle, that's for sure. So
beautiful.
Sorry, thank you. Oh, Tom, I do have to say, there's one image I could never show here, which is I did go to Brooks Falls years after you did, and I did a photo of a salmon being caught by a bear. And everybody says when they see my website or see images, they say, "Oh my God, I know that image. I love that image." I said, "No, Thomas Mengelson's photo. You don't know this one." So since we're now on the same podium or whatever, I do have to do a shout out.
Oh, thank you. That's funny.
Yeah. Oh, and I was in your gallery in Jackson Hole last time, so it was great to get up close and personal and really see that image and the other ones you have there.
Next
So
time,
I think let's get back to the orangutan. I think the expression, the lips, everything about that. I mean, you would have to know that they're highly intelligent animals just looking at your image. I mean, yeah, they share so much DNA with us, but you're looking into the face of somebody that's quizzically looking back at you, and you kind of wonder which is the more intelligent of the creatures.
Oh no, there's no doubt, and that's one of the things. The sentient beings behind the eyes, and it's very interesting. One of the things I discovered in my research with Dr. Rob Shoemaker, primatologist, he said that they do reciprocal gift giving. And they have long-term memories. And so if they give you something, they expect something in return, and it could be months later, but they do expect it. And so there's this whole complex, and that happens not only in the wild, but in captivity where it's studied. But unfortunately, because just like with a lot of other animals, they're cute when they're young, there is a black market for them when they're young, and it won't get into too much detail, but one of the shots I did this in the book of a bunch of orphaned orangutans in a wheelbarrow because of either they wandered into palm oil plantations, or because their mothers were killed and the babies were taken from them, to be sold in the black market. And so there's definitely real issues. But if you see in fact, when I was shooting, I had to get a whole physical to get up close when I photographed in a forest school in Borneo, and we're not supposed to touch them at all, which of course I didn't. And I was just standing there between shots, and all of a sudden this little hand reached up and held my hand. And it was the most amazing thing. And so I held it for a beat or two, then slowly lifted it. But it was an incredible thing. It was just
wow.
It's life-changing.
I love this image so much.
Thank you so much, Matthew. You got a book coming your way, by the way.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, I'm going to see you in 2 weeks. So,
arigato gozaimasu.
Dotashimashite. Sumimasen. Okay.
Is that Indian language? Is that you guys speaking Indian? Okay, thank you, Matthew. Mark, sorry.
The work that Mark does with the apes, it should be pro bonobo work, not pro
There you
bono.
go. Yeah, and when I do lectures, that's very good. I'm going to use it. I am going to take that. But when I do lectures, I do talk about, to the audience, name the 5 great apes. And the one that's toughest to get, second toughest, is that humans were in that as well. But bonobos are the ones that people don't remember. So that I'm glad you brought that up. But then, so
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Ted, you ready, brother?
Ready, Paramount. This is from that motorcycle trip that you mentioned earlier. That
can I just say something? I mean, it has to be someone as beautiful as this for you to go crazy on that motorcycle, for 8 months or whatever it took from LA to Patagonia. Now I get it.
Well, I think, as in all of our work, that it really is about a journey, and it's really hard to get something that sort of, I guess, sums up all those elements of what make us travel. And so it was a journey that was gifted to me by a friend inviting me on a motorcycle journey, and he had already planned it out. And it was like too good an opportunity in life to knock back, to be honest. Even though I couldn't ride a motorcycle, I didn't have a motorcycle, and I didn't have the funds. Sort of overcome that with a few excuses and approached some sponsors, and BMW loaned us a motorbike for like a year. But doing a trip without a specific assignment was quite unusual. So it was under the guise of searching for surf. We went down from LA through Mexico, Central America, then flew across to Venezuela from Panama. And this is just one image. I've shot Carnival before, but this was actually a theatre show on Carnival. It wasn't during Carnival, but it just had some technical things that I really liked. It's shot at a really slow shutter speed with a long lens. And I think like a 15th of a second. So it's got this movement on the outer extremities, which in some ways, combined with the color, really exude that sort of vibrance of Brazil and Carnival. And at the same time, there's this serenity of that sharpness of a face. And so on a technical level, I sort of like that. But like I say, to have an image that represents, it's really hard to capture a journey in an emotional sense. And I think this one sort of brings back a lot of really fond memories of that journey. It's I guess what we're all doing is sort of translating moments in time into an emotional response. And Brazil is such a vibrant country. It's pretty exciting, but at the same time, it's sort of got all these other elements of fear and danger. And just riding a motorcycle through Brazil, I read Lonely Planet before I got to Brazil, and it was like 80,000 people a year die on the roads. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even going to make it through Brazil. But it all went well. And, so I think the fact that this represents the journey as much as anything to me is what I really like about this.
Nice.
Great.
It's incredible.
It's amazing that 15th of a second and your tack sharp on the eyes is unbelievable.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it was actually a stabilized lens, it was before stabilization in the sensors. And it's just one of the, sometimes you just nail it. And it's obviously she's just for that moment of time, she's still, but the feathers and everything else are still moving, and the highlights that are sparkling, amplify that even more. So,
movement, yeah.
It's beautiful.
Incredible.
Great.
Very vibrant.
Isn't it?
Yeah. It's just like the people there.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks. Tiffany, you ready, Tiffany?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to congratulate Carmel and Art for your year of Earth is Our Witness, and it's been an amazing year listening to all the artists and watching.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to all of you.
Tiffany, I think speak just a little louder.
Oh, okay, sorry.
There you go.
Okay, sorry, I'm sitting flat. So this is a photo that I took almost exactly a year ago during the Black Lives Matter protests in Portland, Oregon. And I think like a lot of people after George Floyd sort of, looked and thought, how can I help support this movement? And I came up with listening, learning as much as I could, witnessing, documenting, and sharing. So this is a grainy image, but that was from one of the nights. There was all the fog is from the tear gas. And unfortunately, I think my motto is overconfident and underprepared. I didn't have the correct protection for my eyes. So I was shooting blindly a little bit. The person next to me, as you can see, they are firing rubber bullets. And the person next to me had just gone down. And it was very chaotic. But I was grateful to be there, and yeah, so.
Beautiful.
Powerful.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
I
definitely
love
powerful.
Very powerful. I love the depth of it too. Just the layers of it. It's just very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's also powerful too, it's like we're used to seeing images like this in lands that are always foreign lands with conflict and that, and it's then just multiplied when it is in your own backyard. How did we get to this point effectively? So it's a really powerful statement when it comes from your home, so to speak.
You make a really good point that I would have never imagined that this would be downtown Portland, Oregon.
Exactly. Yeah.
Night after night after night, too.
This I work in gaming and Xbox, and this image to me feels like a video game image. An artist rendered, because it's like a painting. It feels like an artist rendered video game image. And when you're playing video games, you know that it's not real. It's all make believe. And to me, this image feels surreal in that way, that when this happened this time last year, in the Black Lives Matter, it all felt sometimes very surreal and disturbing, and it has, that image has that tension because it has essentially police with, tear gas and guns and things like that. So in some ways it has the tension. In some ways you want to believe that it's not happening, and yet it is.
Parimal, that's a brilliant comment. I totally agree with you. In many ways, the humans are dehumanized by their uniforms. But when I look at this image, Tiffany, it's both beautiful and it's awful in what's happening. So you captured it extremely well.
Yeah.
And even your courage to actually show up there, regardless of how prepared you think you were, speaks volumes about just your courage and integrity. You wanted to capture something that was happening, regardless of circumstances. Thank you.
Yeah, Tiffany, I just want to say it feels very otherworldly, like others have said, but it also feels to me like it happened in another time period, and like long ago kind of thing. Like I just think of a war like long ago. And so, to learn then it's like, no, this happened not in another world, but in our world. And right now is what's going on is that's really hard to hold that in my head at the same time. And I think that's what makes it so powerful, because it's so disturbing.
Very, very powerful.
It really is.
Thank you, Tiffany. Darren, you ready?
Yes, I am. Hello.
No.
Hello. Okay. So this is a recent picture. I took it 2 weeks ago, about 5 hours from my home. Australia gets a bit of snow every winter, usually down in alpine areas in the southern part of the continent. And so I've seen snow in Australia before, in the snowy mountains where there's some ski resorts which you can kind of ski at every year, and in Tasmania, the island state to the south. But I'm kind of halfway up the continent, and it's quite unusual for us to get snow. So the last dumping of snow, other than this one, in a significant sense, was about 5 years ago. And it's only for a day or two, and then it's all gone. So I travel a lot. I have been traveling a lot over the last sort of decade or so, and I missed the last snow event near home, but the pandemic has meant that I've done a lot of local things lately, and one of those meant that I could get up there and catch this kind of pretty unique event. And so I had the best time driving around for just a day while the snow was there and photographing the Aussie bush that doesn't usually have snow with this kind of Christmassy feel. And so I came across this grey kangaroo, which you might have found in the middle of the frame. I put him in the middle of the frame so you're more likely to find him. But I really wanted to put him up against that gum tree because there was, I don't know, those of you who know the gum trees, the bark kind of peels off and it leaves beautiful patterns on the bases of the trees. And I wanted the kangaroo to kind of have that sense of oneness with the forest. So,
Wait,
yeah,
did you say there's a kangaroo here?
Yeah, there's a kangaroo right in the middle.
Oh, yeah. Wow, I missed that. I completely missed that.
How about that?
Love it.
Yeah, I got some other kangaroo pictures.
It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Darren, this is a stunning image. Since I didn't say that earlier to you, I will say it now.
Thanks, Caramel.
Was it hard taking the kangaroo up there, Darren?
Generally, just to actually measure to see what percentage of this image that kangaroo is, but yet it's amazing because you don't associate this scene, this overall scene, with Australia at all, and yet that tiny, what is it like? You think one? I'm terrible at math. What do you think? 200th of the image or something, or maybe 1/500 is the payoff. I mean, that's really the amazing thing about it. It's like, well, wait a second. Am I seeing what I'm seeing? Because it did take me a second. All of a sudden, I sort of zoomed in. Yeah. It's like, wow, that's it's sort of like a hidden gem in there. The payoff.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Could you bring that kangaroo to the Tetons, please?
There you go. Now that would be.
I love
Nice.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It looks, I like this picture. It looks almost like a painting.
Yeah.
And also looks almost three-dimensional. And on every layer is something really interesting. And then you get to the kangaroo. You're like, wow.
Yeah. Very painterly.
Right.
Yeah.
Darren, the first time I saw the image and look at the kangaroo, I thought it was a burning site. The ashes flying all around. I didn't notice that it was winter.
Okay.
It's such a beautiful image.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the I think sometimes the simple subjects, so without too many elements, are kind of easier to make nice. But with these complicated lines and distractions and things. Just the having that layer of snow in there has really simplified the forest down beautifully. So it kind of reminds me of the Christmas cards. For some reason, we still have Christmas cards in Australia that have deers and snow when it's always like 40 degrees Celsius. But it's kind of the first one, my first Aussie Christmas card picture, I think. Yeah.
Very nice.
Beautiful image, Darren.
Yeah.
Shivang is in session 2, so I'm going to skip his image. Art, you ready, brother?
I have no idea what you're going to show. How
I'm
can I
going
be
to show. You can make up. You can just make up.
All right. Okay. What do we have?
We have human canvas.
Oh.
Do you not see the image? Do you not see your image?
Yeah, I do see it. Yeah,
There's
I mean,
sometimes a delay. Yeah.
in 2008, my TV show Travels to the Edge ran out of funding. It was the world economic downturn. And so I had some time on my hand and I decided to tackle the human form, but I didn't want to just take people into a studio and shoot them with soft light. I wanted to try to do something different with the human form. And so I tried a lot of different experiments. In this particular image, one of my favorites is the fact that first of all, the backdrop's plywood with white paint and then a substance known as crackle and black paint. And then it dries and creates all of that texture. But with the human, I realized with light-skinned people, I would cover them in clay. And before the clay was cracking, I would paint them with black tempera paint. And then as everything dried, I'd take my fingers and pull the skin apart to create the cracks. And it was a learned technique simply because I had never done it before. I never had talked to anybody that had done something like this. But this was one of my favorites simply because I was trying to convey humans coming out of the earth as an evolution. And so I wanted to try to show that the earth and humans in a conjunction, in a similar vein. What I liked about the image was the model could not open both eyes equally. So there's an unevenness in their eyes, which gives it an edge that I really appreciated. So that was it. That's the story behind that image. The entire body of work took 10 years and over 100 different people. And there were doctors, lawyers, every race you can imagine, genders. It was just the best thing about the entire project were all the models that basically volunteered, and we fed them, we gave them water, and we gave them a model print for their efforts. And some of the models came back every shoot that I had over a 10-year period.
It's beautiful.
I love this body of work. I think it's your finest. It's so amazing. The whole collection it's just mind-boggling. It's great.
Thank you, Thomas.
And for those who haven't seen it, you produced the most amazing, elegant, beautiful book on it. So for those who haven't seen it, they definitely have to see it. What's the name of it again? And
Beautiful. Yeah. What's the name of the book?
Human Canvas. The Human Canvas. So I did 2 books. One, I published the book that you saw, and then it came out a couple of years ago as a trade book and was broadly distributed.
Yeah, it's incredible. Your background as a painter, as an artist, really just shows through when you were able to merge your 2 artistic pursuits into one. And this is amazing. And I think people might see it and think, oh, he did, computer stuff, this or that. But no, you captured it with scaffolding, right? Didn't you have to shoot down a lot of the time?
Yeah, in many cases, like this gentleman is standing. But in many cases, we had to have the camera 16 feet above and shooting straight down, and we had people laying down. I had an army of people that helped. I came up with the concepts. I drew all the backdrops. I came up with the idea of clay, but to be honest, I had people that were great at lighting in studios. And the whole idea was to try to create no shadows whatsoever so that the illusion would be perfect. Like that person you're looking at, his name is Marcus. He was a concierge at the Four Seasons in Seattle. Very good guy. And in fact, he always was suggesting ideas too. So he really got into the whole process. But yeah, I had people that helped me set up, because we actually took pictures with the computer. It was connected to a Leica camera. I used phase camera, and most of the shots were shot with the 80 megapixel camera, but we would trigger the exposure through a cable that went from the computer all the way up to the ceiling. And that, initiated the strobes and all those kind of things. So it was hardly the bailiwick that I had become known for, but I think the process, the creativity of it was energizing for me. And it's not unlike what Matthew Jordan was talking about, trying new things that are not, his, what he was known for. And I think a lot of you, in fact, are demonstrating that. Mark, with your orangutan series is vastly different than what I associate you with. So I think all of us as artists are not trying to narrowly define ourselves. We're trying to expand our interest and our genres and keep it interesting for us. Largely put, or simply put, if I was photographing the same squirrel on a branch that I did 40 years ago, I would have migrated onto something else. But by constantly changing locations and concepts, almost every book I've ever worked on had a different style and a different look.
Yeah. Art, I want to say, when I saw this body of work, and I have the book, by the way, and I have 2 of your prints on my wall from this, from the book. I remember when I first saw this whole body of work, I'm like, oh my God, this is the pinnacle of actually everything I've known you for. When you look at all these different images of the human form and all the patterns and the backdrops that you've painted and incorporated, it's like, oh wow, I see giraffe patterns in this one, and then I see, body painting from Papua New Guinea, in another one. And so to me, I think this is some of my favorite work that you've ever done, because it's the culmination of everything that you've done. I can see that in every single image that's in the book. And I just love it. It's the incorporation of wildlife and patterns and people and culture, all into the human form. And to this day, it's my favorite work that you've ever done.
Thank you, Amy.
It's so well done.
Or you can quit now.
I can quit now.
That's it. You've hit the top, man. That's it.
You can retire.
Thank you, guys. You're all very kind. All very kind.
Art, a fun fact, I don't know if you recall, but this was about 10 years back or so, or 12 years back. I don't know exactly when. But when we were going through this, you had actually asked me when we had met if I want to be one of the models for this shoot. And I said, heck no, because I have to be naked and I'm not in shape. That'll be embarrassing. And man, in hindsight, I regret. I should have, and it would have been great to have been photographed by you and have a print like this. That would have been epic. So if you ever go to do round 2, let me know.
Yeah, but if I had painted you at the time, I would have been arrested for kiddie porn.
Okay.
Oh, that's a bad comment. Sorry.
Don't worry. Art is totally chill.
Well, before we went live to the audience, Paramel was talking about his hope to go skinny dipping later, and so this combination is really, I was about to eat dinner after this, but Paramel naked.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Because
you made the front cover for sure. Yeah.
Sorry, say that again, Jasmine.
Oh, you would have made the front cover for sure, right?
No, I hope.
Yeah.
All
I've
right,
seen some of those models. They are extremely, yeah.
You have to show your image. I've been standing here and twitching. Everybody has noticed I'm moving around. I sat in a plane for 5.5 hours.
Okay,
and I had
you're almost there.
So bad, and I didn't happen to have Dupens on tonight for all reasons. So. Let's look at
Okay, so
image.
I thought we'll end with. I mean, it's an image, but I'd love to tell a story behind the image. This particular image is from my hometown Pune, in India, and it's about a festival called the Ganesh Festival that happens once a year, every year, for 10 days, where everyone gathers and worships Lord Ganesha. Ganesha is the elephant god, and in my hometown, there's a special place that my hometown has in India for why this festival is known for. And within that, there's a special place within my hometown where there's a elephant god idol, and is really famous. And I would love to share with you all kind of the story of that elephant god and this particular idol that I've photographed here. This place is called Dagdushet Halwai Ganpati. Dagdushet Halwai, is a long name. It's a native name. And if you look back, what's happening here in the scene is here are all these pilgrims who in midnight for those 10 days come and sing prayers with their Indian drums in praise of the Lord, Ganpati, Ganesha. And you see at the back, right in the center, is that idol. That idol is actually here. It's about 12 or 13 or 14 feet tall. So it's actually a pretty big idol, and it's made of complete gold. And all the Bollywood actors, the chief ministers, everyone comes here during those 10 days to pay their respects. And I'd love to share why that is so. Why, of all these Ganesh idols, there's one special idol, and that's Dagdushet Halwai. So would you like to know that story?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll just maybe I'll keep this image on. But in the 1800s, in the late 1800s, there was a plague in India, very much like the pandemic that we're going through right now. And in my hometown, Pune, there was a local businessman who made Indian sweets for a living, and he was actually quite rich. He had 2 sons, and in their prime, the 2 sons passed away because of plague. So it was a devastating loss to the local merchant in Pune, and they were called Ram and Lakshman. Here's his 2 sons, and he and his wife was absolutely devastated. The love of their life, the 2 kids are gone. And this is again 1800s, where there was no technology, there was no medicine. People were dying left, right, and center because of the plague at that time. And got depressed, gave up everything. He eventually met an astrologer. And the astrologer said, I would highly recommend you adopt a son. And that will change your life forever. And if you adopt a Indian idol, a Ganpati idol instead, that has the potential to change the history of India. And he said, well, that's a little too dramatic, And he said, well, let me go along. And he adopted a son who was very religious, 9-year-old son. And the son in turn, becoming very religious, actually decided to create a idol, which is this Ganesh idol, which is called Dagdushet. It's known for its beautiful proportions. The son hired the best artisans at that time and put in all the money that they had to make it with gold and just make it beautiful. And it was in their home, and that's about it. And they never know what happened. They said, well, there was some prophecy that this idol is going to change the course of India, but they had no idea what. Fast forward decades later, the British came and ruled India. And to an extent where there was the Indian freedom struggle. And one local leader, actually a national leader called Lokmanya Tilak, who said that India, the whole of India, is in such grip of the British. People are scared, and we have lost our independence. What do we do? How do we mobilize all the Indians around India to fight back the British? How do we mobilize? And Lokmanya Tilak, again a national leader, was very, very strategic and astute. And he said, when you're fighting the might of the British Empire and you have no weapons, you have no money, How can you fight that? And you can fight that with faith. The British had enforced curfew in India. They said you cannot come out in the streets to fight the freedom struggle. So they enforced the curfew. How do you break the curfew? You give them the courage of spirituality, of faith, of devotion. And Lokmanya Tilak said, why don't we, the willing, the coalition of the willing, come up with a festival once a year for 10 days? We will come and we will bring our gods from inside our homes on the streets of India. And we will come and we will essentially say a no to the curfew. We will violate the curfew because we are peaceful, and we will pray to our gods, not inside our homes in private, but on the streets of India in public. And there was a radical idea at that time, a radical idea, because worshiping your God is a sacred private activity in your sanctity of your home, and you don't take that on the street. So that's a radical idea. But Lokmanya Tilak said that we need to do something radical because we need to give an excuse to the Indian people to come together in masses, more than 10 people, to break the curfew. And through that, people will talk to each other, and we will create something, a momentum to fight the freedom struggle. And Lokmanya Tilak, there was another gentleman, a local, again, another rich businessman in my hometown, Pune, called Bhausaheb Rangari. They said, let's do it, but we need the first few to start this festival. Who's going to start? Because anyone who starts is probably going to be put in jail by the British. So we need the first few to start this movement. And they said, well, I know, Lokmanya Tilak said, I know probably the right person. And that's that person who had lost the 2 kids and said he has a beautiful Ganpati idol. It's called Dagdushet Ganpati. It's 15 feet tall. It's made full of gold. It's absolutely beautiful. Anyone who sees that is mesmerizing beauty, and people will come to worship it. And maybe I will ask him. So they approached Dagdushet Halwai, the owner, and said, remember that prophecy? It's time to fulfill that prophecy. And we need to bring this idol from outside your home on the streets. And that's how the Ganesh festival started 129 years back, when they brought this idol on the streets of Pune. This was the 3rd Ganesh idol after the first 2. And after that, that gave rise to the Ganesh festival. People started coming out. It spread like wildfire all over Pune, my hometown. Then it went to Mumbai. It went all over India. And that started the freedom struggle to fight back the British using faith as a weapon against oppression. And I just thought, what a beautiful story. And most people, most Indians don't know this story. Most people in my hometown probably don't know the story for how faith can move mountains. And I thought, as we're in this pandemic, like the plague of late 1800s, I'm sure that something good will come out of it, because from everything that burns down, there's something good that comes out. As Amy, as you said, there's a circle of life and death. So that's my story. That's my image as my homage to Dagdushet Ganpati. And thank you.
Hey, so Parimal, I remember we had this image on Tequila Time.
Yes.
And what I love so much about this image is the clarity of the depth of field. And it's almost like you shot multiple exposures and combined them to attain that great depth of field. But I also like that character in the center who's looking opposite than all the other people looking towards you. And that creates a beautiful tension, but it's such a well done image.
Right. Really beautiful.
It really is.
And with those really nice words, I have to go to the bathroom and I have to pack. I've got an early flight to Mexico in the morning. So everybody, thank you for joining Parimal and I, and I'm sure he will have some very nice ways of closing. But for right now, I have to pee like a racehorse. Pupping is turning 52, I have to tell you. All right, guys.
Thank you, Art.
Thanks, Art.
Thank you, Art.
Thank you.
Well, that was it for today, friends. That was it. Hopefully you all had a good time. And want to just say thanks to all of you again for supporting. And we are year 1. Hopefully we'll keep doing this round 2 with all of you. And we'll be in touch. I just want to say thanks to all of you. This has made our last year very special.
Thank you, Parimal.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Parimal and Art.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Night to all. Goodbye,
Safe
Tom.
travels. Enjoy.
Bye.